What's up, Michigan fans? Welcome back. Here with Coach Thornblade, Blade's Banner. We're here on an exciting night. Michigan got the number one recruit in the nation, Bryce Underwood, hometown kid. A lot of promise. Everything I've seen from him thus far as a high school athlete. He's going to be a great fit with Michigan. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about recruiting with Coach Blade, how it's changed over the years and what's different. We will touch on the Indiana game, talk about the good things that we saw, the positive things that we can roll into this next 2-game season, and then we will finalize with Michigan versus Northwestern. We will talk about supporting the seniors, the winningest senior class in the history of Michigan football. They have won more games than any class to graduate in Michigan football. I think we should be proud of these kids and what they've done for the university, how they contributed to our college football teams, how they contributed to the national championship they brought home. I would love to see a lot of positivity for their last game against Northwestern in the big house and see the faithful fans support them and have them go out on the right way. So starting off, Bryce Underwood, coach. Super happy we got him. Obviously, still has to sign. He's committed. Still has to sign. But I think this is a step in the right direction. Obviously, a position we need to improve in.
Unquestionably, and whether people are aware of it, Belleville is probably 20 miles down the road from Michigan Stadium.
Coach Carr got his start at Belleville High.
I believe Coach Carr was on the staff when my senior year when I played Belleville High School in the old Suburban Six. But he's highly regarded, and he was highly sought after. And I know LSU's offensive coordinator was coming up here when they had their bye. He came and spent a lot of time, watched his game, and he had committed to LSU. But it's a great flip for us. The people that have seen him play, and I have not, tell me that he's much like JJ in that he can make every throw. They said he can put it in there standing on his head. He's got an extraordinary arm and the ability to run out of the pocket. So he's an accomplished player, and it's an exciting recruit. That will probably create some momentum, and they're having a good recruiting year. And I think another player from Belleville who had committed to Pitt, his teammate, has committed to Michigan, along with Bryce. So that'll probably create some momentum. I think they had 18 or so, probably 19 or 20 now. I'm not sure how many grant aids they have to give out, but that'll create some momentum as they move towards the end of recruiting. Now, he won't sign until February. And as we look around the country, we know a commitment is not really, it doesn't seem to be a commitment. But, and that's true on both sides.
Yep.
He's close enough that we'll be able to stay close to him. And it'll be exciting. It's an exciting time. I know that Miller Moss, the outstanding quarterback at SC, who they've replaced since he went out and said he would go to the portal, and that Michigan was his first choice. So if we can get a veteran quarterback, Bryce Underwood, along with the young quarterback we have from Charlotte, that'll be a good room with a lot of talent in it, and and then I believe Warren Davis will be back, Orgy will be back, so we'll have a lot of talent in that room, and we'll have some competition, and that should make them all better. It'll be like the old room when Greasy was there, and in that same room was
Henson,
Brady, Tom Brady was in that room, and Henson, and Scott Leffler, the head coach of Bowling Green, was in that room.
Dreisbach
was there, so that was a heck of a quarterback room, and this will be similar to that. And so that's exciting.
Well, and that's kind of, I don't know, I don't know what you think about this, Coach, but to think about the past 25 years where we struggled against Ohio State, they always had a quarterback. There might have been a year in between, but it was Troy Smith, it was Terrell Pryor, it was DeJuan Haskins, it was JT Barrett. This is 3 or 4 years each of these guys. There's 20 years of unbelievable talent, which I think separated them from us and a lot of people in the Big Ten. So if
Well,
we can,
not until we out quarterbacked them when we got JJ.
yep. Well, that's what I'm saying.
There's a real correlation between success. There's a correlation. Look, there's a great correlation between success on the football field and that position. We all know that. It's obvious. Lombardi said each position is critical and each man has to execute in a coordinated fashion and do his job. And
Well,
everybody's equal. And if everybody didn't work together, you're not successful except for one position.
yep.
And that position, and he dislikes saying it, is more important than any other one on the football team, and that is quarterback.
Yeah, and
So
that goes to my whole point, Coach. The winningest senior class. These are all JJ's guys. He started recruiting them. He committed. He brought them all in with him, and now hopefully we can.
Caden McNamara led us to a championship and did a really great job that year.
Yeah.
He struggled a little bit at Iowa, but he's not done in the supporting cast he had at Michigan. So we've had excellent. We've had really a lot of production out of the quarterback position, and it looks like we're going to have enough talent. There will be enough talent that quarterback room is going to produce some real victories. It'll manifest itself victories on the field.
Well, I got 2 questions for you about recruiting, Coach. First one is, things have changed a lot, but when you're getting recruited as a player, what it's like to go through that process and then ultimately commit. And then also, when you're a coach and you sign a big guy, I know, and we've talked about it many a times, it all depends on when they get there and how they perform. But when you are recruiting your butt off and you're going against these other big-time universities, I know you've told me stories about going against UCLA and Ohio State and, all the great universities that you recruited against. I mean, what is it? Notre Dame
was always a factor when I was recruiting because, we recruited primarily within 300-mile radius of the campus.
What's it like to get that kid, Coach? What does it feel like as a coach to sign that kid and then know the work starts then?
You invest yourself in the recruiting process, so it feels good when you can get them to commit. I always did it with a lot of conviction because I believe so strongly that the University of Michigan is a wonderful place for any young person, and a degree from there will stand in good stead for a lifetime. But then when you lose them, it's heartbreaking because the same thing is true. You work hard to get. You're not going to get them all. It's difficult. Back in those days, there were some schools that broke very strict rules, and sometimes you'd lose them because of that, and that was always difficult. But I was able to get a lot of good players, and I think part of it is that the university sells itself. When you tell them from the University of Michigan, it gets their attention. Nobody's not interested, and the tradition, all the great things about the university, and that I had played there myself, and I was representing the man that I played for, and I could tell him firsthand what a great man he was, and what a great privilege and honor it would be. It was to play for him, and to wear that wonderful uniform. So that's all part of recruiting. Recruiting can be distasteful. I never would promise. It wasn't up to me anyway. I didn't believe in promising positions, starting positions or time on the field to anybody that was unproven, and I would never denigrate one of the players on our team in order to successfully secure a player. Other people did that. They said, "Well, this guy's no good. You'll beat him out." I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't betray somebody on our team because I didn't know if he was with us or against us, and I don't think that's how you do it. The big thing is you're going to come to a magnificent school with this wonderful tradition and this great network of people and a chance to get a quality education, and then go on after football to opportunity and success in the real world. So now there was no NIL, there was no portal. Things have changed dramatically. I've said before on our podcast that I think the portal coach is a critical position on the staff. If you have a good guy that can evaluate, doesn't have to be a guy these days. If you have a good person that can evaluate talent around the country that's playing maybe on a smaller level, maybe a lesser division, or maybe, for instance, playing in the MAC, and you can identify a player that can come in and give you help right away and fill in your needs. That's critical. I talked about the coach at SMU that had success. He was one of the first guys to go to the portal, and he had a portal coach. And he said, they asked him how he was able to improve the team, and he said the first meeting every morning, in season, out of season, at 7 a.m. was a 2-hour meeting with the portal coach, because I knew I had to go out and get players, get some talent, in order to populate the team and make us successful. So, the old saying we say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's not the scheme, it's the Willies and the Joes, it's the players.
Yeah.
So if you get good players, you're going to win. If you get talent, you're going to win. Now you got to be sound, you got to be competent. But if you don't have good players, you're just not going to win. That's it. You got to have good players, and you got to have good players in key positions.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Coach. I mean, just over being a Michigan fan over the years and recruiting against the SEC, and you even mentioned it and all these different things. People say, hey, we lost that guy because, they were paying him, or, they do this down there. This is how they recruit down there. And these are the things that, Michigan faithful has been saying for years. Well, now everybody's...
They were doing NIL before NIL. They were doing NIL before NIL was fashionable.
Well, exactly. But now,
that was not our culture. That's the old...
But now it's legal,
we wouldn't compromise ourselves.
I agree. But now it's legal.
Yep.
We did a great job with the NIL. I hope we put together a great package for him. I am ecstatic that a kid that is as talented as him and as sought after as him can earn in college and earn at that high a level. Now, do I know? What I hope for these universities is they put a plan in place. Somebody like Greg Harden that can coach these kids through being a young person with money. But on the other end, I think it is fully deserving. I'm happy for him. And, people complained about people paying people for years. Now it's legal. Now we're doing it at a very high level. And I think it's great for the university. I think it's great for the kid. And I think there's nothing but good things that are going to come of this.
I'm mixed about it. I believe the players should be compensated. I've always said if Ryan Day is on one side and Sharon Moore's on the other side, but there's nobody in the middle playing the game, I'm not going to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to turn on the TV. Those are nice guys, and they're well compensated, and I appreciate it, but I have no interest in watching. I like to watch the players. The players are the people in the stadium. Now, I think we do need some guardrails. What's going to happen is the rich get richer. Teams and places that can't generate that kind of NIL income are going to fall by the wayside. And so it's going to destroy parity, in my opinion. And so there has to be some guardrails.
Parity is the most it's ever been, Coach.
People are paying you name, image, likeness, so you should provide them with some benefit. Like when Allstate or whoever the heck, Mahomes does a Subway, when Mahomes does a commercial for them, they pay him a lot, but he provides them with a benefit because he generates sales for them. The NIL is a different thing. They're just giving the kids money, and there probably is not a lot comes back to the individuals or in their company that give them the money. So to me, it's just I want the kids to do well. I'm happy, there's a kid you can play quarterback at some of these universities and be in a position, if you do it right, maybe not to work very hard the rest of your life, which is okay. That's the marketplace. NIL is here.
Or to work really hard and change your whole family's life. Now you have money, you can invest in a company, you can change generations of your family's life because of this opportunity.
Yeah.
That's how I look at
it. That's a good thing, and that's wonderful, particularly kids that come from deprived backgrounds. By the same token, there's got to be some guardrails. The NFL has a salary cap. I don't know how the heck you'll because right now, I mean, NIL is real, so you embrace it. You try to be the best NIL team, organization. Now the university can't manage it. I don't believe. I'm not sure what the restrictions are, the laws, but we want to be the. We want to get more NIL money. The reason Ohio State is so good is because they came up with a lot of money and they retained a lot of players that were going to leave and go to the pro football.
Yes.
That's part of their success. And then they were able to go out and get a very fine quarterback, competitive leader, who I have great regard for, Howard, and that's made their team. At Indiana, it's kind of a different situation. They were able to bring some players in from the portal with NIL, but he brought 14 players with him from a successful program at James Madison. So that's a one-time thing for Indiana. He's not going to be able to bring 14 players he coached before at a championship level again. So they'll have to come up with it's got to be a mixture. You got to have talented young people coming in, and you want to recruit the best players in the country. But you also want to bring portal players in that can fill in spots. The first guy we brought in was Jake Rudock, who did a wonderful job for us. He had played at Iowa. He came and played quarterback for Jim, and then he kicked around the NFL for a little bit. But the great news is Jake Rudock now is at the Michigan Medical School, studying to be a doctor, and well on his way to that. So there's a lot of good things that can happen with the portal.
Well,
I believe players should have mobility.
I think the portal has a little bit will keep NIL a little bit honest because, coach, you can give kids all this money, you can do all this stuff, but if you don't perform, if there's not execution on the field, things change, people jump around, money gets shifted. I mean, this is more of a business now. It's going to be interesting to see just in recruiting because, like you said,
Some of the things about NIL is they want the players will commit to playing a bowl game. Now a lot of players, good players, if they're going to go to the NFL, they don't play in a bowl game because they don't want to risk injury in their pro career. So there's it's a wild west now, in my opinion, and so I don't like it necessarily. I don't know if it's the best thing for all these kids are driving Maseratis and all these big cars, and I don't know if that's the best thing for 18, 19, 20-year-old young man, but that's the way it is. So the heck,
but
Ferraris, every other car in the world, they're driving, and
most of
I
them are
just think
driving
there's
trucks
danger in
and
that.
Explorers and nice cars like that. But there are some kids that have
Well, we
the
didn't
big.
drive anything. I didn't drive anything. I walked down that hill, and then I walked back up that hill. And maybe it was a good thing. The Chinese say you can't become a great person unless you've carried water and chopped wood, and there's something to that. But anyway, that's the situation we're in. I don't necessarily like it, but if that's the way it is, then we got to do the best job with NIL of anybody in the country if we want to win and be the best team in the country.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is just interesting to see how if the money will flip kids, if it's the university, if it's our tradition, if it's a great academic institution, if it's just those things, and
Well,
what
I
type.
think it's probably a lot different. Now look at that kid. Excuse me. Look at that kid at Boise State, the running back who's a Heisman candidate and led his team to a great season and to the CFP, to God's football playoffs. He was offered a ton of money to go to other schools. And I'm sure Boise State probably is doing pretty well for him, but not the kind of money he was offered. He chose to stay with his teammates. He said, it's more important to me. These guys are my brothers and my coaches I love, and I love this place. So I'm not just going to, turn on them for what I consider a few bucks because Boise State, my teammates, and the opportunity they have given me here is more important to me than that. So
Well,
that's him.
that's fun.
That's his values. He's a kid of integrity, and he's a wonderful player.
It's funny you say that, Coach, because if you look at Bryce Underwood's Twitter or any of his social medias, all it is are posts of his teammates, his players, trying to help his guys from Belleville get looks. So he's a great kid. Excited about him.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say about, and this is what you've always told me about the University of Michigan. Guy I played with, one of the greatest talents we've ever seen, Antonio Bass. He's a 5-star quarterback from Jackson, Michigan. Came, Bo told you one time this might be one of the talented players that ever came to Michigan when we were at a practice. He tore up his whole leg after his freshman year, never played again, but now he has a great education. He's a successful person, father, brother, one of the greatest guys I've ever met, and just a talented individual. And he got to shine at the University of Michigan after his injury. So it is a great place for just beyond the athletic field.
That's Michigan's credit.
Yeah.
That's to Michigan's credit. Now, let me say one more thing about the NIL. Don Brown just got fired at Massachusetts. Don Brown had been with us, and had been coach for a long time. Got roundly criticized for, I think he blitzed too much and put us in a bad position, and let Ohio State score over 50 points 2 years running, and that's not good. But he went back to University of Massachusetts, a place he had been, and he just got fired. But I saw a post that somebody put up and said, we let Don Brown go, but people should understand that the combined amount of NIL money our opponents had that we played this year had $44 million. And our $36,000 just couldn't stand up to that. So there you go. That's NIL. If you don't have NIL money, you're not going to secure the best players.
Yep, absolutely.
Period.
Well, yeah, I hear you, Coach. Moving on to Michigan, Indiana. We'll try to do 20 minutes on all of our topics. Or if you want to talk about the Big Ten, it's Indiana and Ohio State. What else is there, Coach? Oh, Oregon.
Well,
they're not.
Indiana. Well, let's say about Indiana. This is how I feel about Indiana. It's a long time ago. Now, we've had a bye since then. So have they, interestingly enough, before the Ohio State game, their big game in Columbus. Our defense played well. I said prior to the game, if we could hold them to 20 points or under, we could win. But in the end, our offense couldn't generate couldn't generate enough points to win the game. Our offensive line and our quarterback, I think, did not play well. And that's why we lost to Indiana.
Our offensive line, Coach, our quarterback was under duress. Our quarterback was under duress.
Was pressured.
He played better, but he didn't play great because I don't think he had an opportunity to.
Well, the other thing, Rob, is that when he was under pressure, when you're under pressure in the pocket, you need to reset your feet, move around the pocket, and then make a play. He never came out and ran the ball one time. That you have to do on occasion. And when he moves his feet within the pocket, he's inaccurate. And then when he was flushed, when he extended the play, he was not able to complete passes. Now, those are drills, in my opinion. Those are quarterback drills. You set those up, and you teach them how to gather themselves, turn their hips, and throw the ball accurately. You also work with the receivers. It's kind of a scramble deal. Where do you go when the player's extended? So he knows where you go. So, I think that was the story of the game. We were pressured 80% of the time. And because of that, they won the game because we could not complete passes when we were pressured. That's the fault of the offensive line, maybe coverage sacks, and then also the quarterback. When he had to move around the pocket, he was not accurate throwing the ball. And so that was a game we could have won. We did do a good job on the sideline, managed the clock. And so, but that's behind us. That's behind us. And, everybody's talking about Indiana, and they're critical of them. They've won 10 games, and I've said it many times. I don't care what your schedule is like. If you win 10 games in major college football, that's a great season because it is very difficult to do. Now, I just read, I think it's called College Football Forum, and they rank the difficulty of schedule, and the most difficult they rank, and it's based on who you play, the quality of the teams you play, one-loss record. Michigan has played, according to them, the toughest schedule in the country. And I identified the last podcast we have. that we have played teams with a combined record of 70% winning record. So we played really good teams that have winning records. Even the lesser teams we played, the non-conference teams, are teams that have been successful and they've had winning programs. Indiana is 66th. Northwestern has the 29th toughest schedule. So Indiana has not had a tough schedule. But that aside, they've got 10 games under their belt, and they're playing for a chance to go win the title this week in Columbus. And, I'll look forward to watching that game. Northwestern has beaten 3 teams this year, or 4.
I thought they 4
teams.
4 teams, yeah.
The 4 teams that they have beaten are not, and let me get it out here, are not
that great, Coach.
Great teams.
Yeah.
They would include Miami of Ohio and Eastern Illinois and Purdue. And those are not real tough teams. And they
Miami of Ohio
beat Maryland.
Miami of
Ohio, Eastern Illinois, Maryland, and Purdue. So those are the teams that they've been successful against. They beat Purdue in overtime. They lost to Duke in overtime. Now, the one thing they did do is score 24 points against Indiana, and we were unable to do that. I like their quarterback. I like their coach. Their coach came in at a very difficult time. And after the scandal, and they let Pat Fitzgerald, who was a fine coach there, but they had some hazing and stuff go on there, and I do not endorse that. I don't know what he had to do with it, if anything, but that's bad stuff, and you don't want that to go on, and it's not right.
Awful. Stupid.
But he came in, that guy came in, Braun, and has done a wonderful job there. Now, so I think it's not going to be a layup, but this is what I've done, and we can go back and talk about the big schedule again. Here's what I say about this. So I'm going to use some displays here. Michigan is 5-5, but here's what I think about that right now. You could throw that away, because how I feel about this now is we're in a 2-game season. 2-game season. We have a lot at stake for both games. We're going to play for the right to go to a bowl game. The University of Michigan's football program is predicated on going to a bowl game. It's a chance to improve the young players. It's more practices. It's an opportunity to compete, and it's important that we go to a bowl game. We must beat Northwestern to go to a bowl game. And then we're going to play in the greatest rivalry in sports. And that, enough said, there could be no greater motivation than to beat an Ohio State team that is certainly one of the best in the country, if not the best team in the country. So that's where we are. We have a 2-game season, and we need to be motivated, and we should be motivated. I hope they have taken these 2 weeks to put in some new things, some new wrinkles. I don't want them to do, against Northwestern in Indiana what we're expected to do at all times, and offensively and defensively. Now, I thought defensively we really played a good game at Indiana. There were a couple younger players that came in and made a contribution. And I'll say it again. We have the 2 finest defensive tackle, the greatest defensive tackle tandem in the country, and one of the greatest players to ever play. Well, they're both great, and I shouldn't minimize Grant. I'll take Grant. I'll go anywhere with Grant. I will take him any foxhole. I'll go fight anybody with Grant. But this Mason Graham is truly one of the most gifted players to ever play at the University of Michigan, in my opinion. And it's a great privilege to watch him. And you talked a little bit about the seniors. And so this is their last game in Michigan Stadium. And I recall the last game when I played. There was this wonderful announcer who had this resonant voice that was iconic. His name was Steve Filipiak. And I remember in the third quarter, he announced the names. We were playing Ohio State. He announced the names of those of us, those seniors, who were playing their last game for Michigan in Michigan Stadium. And, that was that was a surreal moment, and chilling. So the saying Carl Grapentine, who is now our announcer and has an equally iconic voice and a wonderful man, is going to do that for all these great players. Donovan Edwards, um, Josiah. I made a list of them. There's 16 of them. Loveland will be playing his last game. And so that's an important moment for those guys. They should be proud of their record. And they should, I think, be filled with pride for what they've accomplished, but also enter into this 2-game season with purpose and intensity. Purpose and intensity. The purpose against Northwestern is to beat them and become bowl eligible. And then I don't have to talk about the next week. Everybody knows what that means. That'll be down in Columbus. We're not there yet. Let's take the first step. Let's approach this game like it's the biggest game we will ever play in our lives, because it is. We need to beat Northwestern. And Northwestern has a good quarterback. They aren't, you look at them statistically, they're the 33rd best team in the country against the rush. So they're pretty good at stopping the rush. They got a pretty good defensive line. They got a real good linebacker. They had a set of linebackers. One of them is injured now. The other kid makes a lot of hits. They have a real good defensive back. They have one of our old players,
AJ Henning. Yeah, they got a good receiver, Coach.
He's caught 90 balls in the last couple of years, and so we got to stop him. And I like the quarterback, Lausch. This guy can run and pass. They started off against Ohio State, and they played really well. They were playing them in Wrigley Field, and they played great. And I think it was 7-0 after the first quarter. And then Ohio State, they just couldn't cover them in the end, or really stop the run. And so that's what happened there. But they played well in the beginning. If they could sustain that kind of play, we're going to have our hands full. So we got to have purpose and intensity. We got to be ready, and we're playing for the right to go to a bowl game. And it is our seniors' last game. And on top of that, it's an important game because it is called the George Jewett Bowl. George Jewett is the first black man to play at the University of Michigan. And then after that, he went and played at Northwestern. So George Jewett has played at the same at both schools. And I believe he might have been the first black man to play at Northwestern. Way back at the turn of the century. And as people in Ann Arbor know, there is a Jewett Street, and there's a lot of the family that still lives in and around Ann Arbor. So it's exciting because of that, because it's symbolic of that groundbreaking of George Jewett and what he did. So that's an important part of this. So that's all part of the big spectacle that will take place on Saturday. And we should all embrace that and recognize that. It's sports at its very best is a catalyst for social change. Everybody knows about Jackie Robinson. It wasn't too long ago. I played with the first black quarterback at Michigan, Denny Franklin. It wasn't too long ago when people said, you couldn't win with a black quarterback. That's gone by the wayside. That was racism and idiocy and wrong. So things are moving along, and George Jewett was a forerunner to all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's going down history. I mean, that always gives me chills when you.
I don't want to lose you.
Yeah, do you got me, Coach?
I got you.
Yeah, sorry. That always gives me chills when you tell me that story about George Jewett. I mean, I riding Jewett Street down to go to Ann Arbor Pioneer High School, so I've been. You've been telling me that one for a long time.
Yeah.
Just to go down memory lane a little bit.
That Coach, family is still in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. 1972, you guys only beat Northwestern 7-0. What was that all about?
1972?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that was about them having a wonderful team. Alex Agassi was their coach. Yep. They had several players that went on to play in the NFL. So they had a good team.
I was looking up scores
early in the year, and
Go ahead, Coach. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It was early in the year, and if we only beat them 7-0, I'm sure that we had a had a tough practice the next week. I don't recall that. I remember we played them in the first game of my sophomore year, and it was our first
21-6.
game. One of the first times the big opened up, and Bo Rather they let a ball lay in the end zone, and Bo Rather, who we lost not too long ago, was a great teammate of mine. Landed on a fumble in the end zone and helped us win that game. And they had a really good team back then. So that Coach Agassi was coaching back then. He had succeeded Eric Parsegian, and Bo had coached there, was an assistant there in the 50s, in the 60s, I'm sorry. And, they were still pretty competitive. And then they had a period of time where they didn't do well.
Well,
and then Gary Barnett brought them back.
Yep. 1975, you guys beat them 69-0. 1975.
Well, that was John Pont.
69-0.
John Pont took over Northwestern. He was Bo's roommate, and Bo. I remember John Pont he was Bo's roommate in Miami, Ohio, and his great friend. And after that happened, he didn't talk to Bo for several years. And Bo was it hurt Bo. It hurt Bo.
Yeah.
Bo said, "Hey, you got to coach your team. I'll coach my team. And I'm not going to tell my second and third team guys not to score. I'm going to tell them to score. And they better score. And they better be great when they go in." And that's how he did it. So
you always told me that story, Coach, because I always, when I started coaching, and I would either have a big win or a big loss, and you whether you feel bad or you feel great. That story, that's why I brought it up, 1975, 69-0, because, you end up coaching with the guys, you coach against them, this happens, and then, you got to coach your team, I got to coach mine, and I'm not going to tell my second or third team to take off.
Yeah, in the end, our third team was better than their first team, so they couldn't stop us. And, the players weren't going to go in there. Bo wasn't going to kneel down. He handed the ball off. He wasn't passing, he substituted freely, and which he didn't do on all occasions. But everybody went in there and played hard. And we were loaded back then. We had great depth and great talent. So that's
did you come back?
And that's what happened. You don't see those scores anymore.
Did you start coaching in 75 or 76?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Rob. I don't know if we're losing it. You're buffering a little bit.
I said, did you start coaching in 75 or 76?
75. So I played for the Chiefs in 74. And then the next year, they realized their mistake. They got traded out of training camp to the Lions. The Lions let me go. And then I went to see him for direction. He said, "You're going to shine my shoes and get my coffee. And you're a graduate assistant." And I said, "I will be honored," and I was. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
I was a graduate assistant.
That's great.
So let's go back to Northwestern.
Two last things, and then I want to finish Northwestern. Two highlights of my life that we've had against Northwestern is 2000, 54 versus we beat them 54-51. David Terrell had 3 touchdowns. Anthony Thomas had 3 touchdowns. It was an unbelievable game. And then in 2012, we beat him in overtime with Devin.
Particularly then. That was uncommon. Scores like that were uncommon. Not now with spread offenses, that's not in overtime. Those are not uncommon scores. But back then, that was a lot of offense.
And then in 2012, Devin Gardner beat him. He threw for over 500 yards, something crazy, set a record for us. We beat him in overtime, 38-31. So we have had tough games against them in my lifetime. I'm excited to see another one. But I just wanted to just talk about some past games, Coach. Bring you back to the 70s for a second. But now tell me about this QB. Tell me about how he can throw up.
Well, no, he's not throwing. Now they brought in a player in the beginning of the year from Vanderbilt, and they started him, and then he didn't do well, and then they put this Lausch in, who was a sophomore. He can run and throw. Now he hasn't thrown. He's only completed 55% of his passes, But I thought in the Ohio State game, he had a turnover, it was costly. I believe it was the first or second drive when they were moving the ball. And that gave Ohio State the ball back and stopped their momentum early in the game. So, he's made some mistakes. But, when you look at the turnover ratio for both teams, the story of our season is -5 turnovers. We're -5 turnover differential. So the opponents had 5 more turnovers. We've given 5 up, and they are +1. And he's thrown 5 interceptions. They have 12 fumbles. We have 9 interceptions, 11 fumbles. So, taking care of the ball is everything. It was remarkable that the Lions won when they played the Texans and Goff threw 5 interceptions. Totally out of character for Goff, but you don't survive that typically.
No.
But they did to their great credit and the great job that the Coach Campbell does. The other thing that I noted is that net punt should be 38 yards minimum. We were always 42, 43, 44 in subsequent years, last few years. Our net punt now, after some of the returns we've given up, is 32.4, which is bad. That's not good enough because it's field position. And, Bo, you say the most important play in the game is the punt because it dictates field position. Their net punt is 31.4. So we both punted really poorly, far under what's considered average or acceptable. So we got to win the kicking game. Now we have a great field goal kicker. They, I think, like Indiana, are vulnerable there. Our guy's 13 for 14, but the one he missed, they fumbled a snap, and his longest is 56. Our guy is one of the best kickers, certainly in the country. Their guy is 7 for 10, and his longest is 46. So that could be a big difference because our guy has proven to be money in the bank. They're only scoring 18 points a game, but we're only scoring 20.4 points a game. Defensively, we're allowing 23 points a game, and they're allowing 22.8. So we both are statistically are not great. They're pretty good against the run. They're giving up about 130 yards against the run. We're going to have to run to beat them. Our balance is 60% run, 40% pass. Now, Jimmy was always 45, 55. 55% run, 45% pass. They're 50-50. I mean, they are right at 50-50. Their average pass play per attempt is 5.8. Ours is 6 yards. That's not good. You got to be at 8. You got to be at 8 at least. Average completion per attempt. So on third down, we got to win that. We have not been great. Certainly on defense, we have not been great. 43% of the time, the opponent's been successful against us on third down. Now we're much better on first and second down. And our defense really came on, and, they really stopped Indiana in the second half. They put that quarterback to bed. He did not complete many passes. And we did a great job, and we got after him. We put great pressure on him. So I think if we put a lot of pressure on Lausch, and we protect our quarterback, protect him, don't force him to reset his feet because you can't. We're not protecting him. Don't force him to scramble and extend the play because we're not good when we do that. We're not accurate. But if he can sit back there with good protection and we run the ball successfully, then I think we can beat Northwestern. So it's a 2-game season. Purpose and intensity. That's what we got to have. We got to have some fun. This is our last game. Now, it's fun when you win. That's what fun is. It's no fun to lose. And, we have 5 losses this year, and it's been a difficult year. And people are pointing fingers. There's a ton of criticism. But as you mentioned, Rob, this is the winningest senior group in the history of Michigan football because they played a lot of games. I think they have 47 victories, 3 Big Ten championships. 3 Big Ten championships. Nobody does that. The only other schools that have had that happen are Ohio State. And way back before World War II, Minnesota had some seasons where they had 3 Big Ten championships in a row with a great coach called Betty Bierman. But that doesn't happen. So we've had unusual success. the bar is set high at Michigan, and we expect a lot. Now, that's true with every phase of the university. You're expected to be excellent and pursue excellence and to be at your very best. So, to be average on a football field is not anything that we're accustomed to. But let's throw away I threw away the rest of the season, so we're not going to even reflect on it. Now it's a 2-game season, 2 games, and there's great motivation to win both those games. So I'm excited to watch it, and I'm excited for the Michigan fans to say goodbye to some of the best players to ever play here, and that have done a wonderful job for us. Now, one thing that that I wish some people would talk about again, but nobody does. We talked about NIL and all the money we're giving young players, unproven players, is graduation rate. And I'm happy to say that Michigan still does a good job there. No one reflects on that. No one talks about it. And no one talks about the success of the product. And, we used to tell the guys, you're going to play in front of 100,000 people. You're going to have some of the greatest experience of your life. It's going to be exciting, exhilarating, and you're going to win championships. But we want your greatest successes to come when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, when you're in your father and within your chosen profession and within your community. And we expect you to be leaders in your community and take all the good things that you've learned here at the University of Michigan and take this great experience of wearing that great headgear and playing on these successful teams and take it and put it to work to make other people's lives better and to do good and to distinguish yourself later on in life. So that was where we were philosophically. And I believe that most coaches today embrace it. The pressure to win is so great, and there's so much money involved that much of the stuff I just talked about, those values have been obscured. But in essence, people don't get into coaching because they think they're going to make millions. They get into coaching because they love the game, but they love the young people. And they think positive things come out of the experience. And I believe that. I believe that an intercollegiate experience, if you're really dedicated to it, you really want to do it, can really be a positive thing in your life and great fun. And the memories you'll embrace and live with forever. And those guys you play with are your brothers. And all my guys I played with, I consider my brothers, and all those kids I coached. So that's what our values should be. No one talks about it. We used to get introduced and they'd talk about what people were studying. No one even cares what people, what are they studying? Nobody knows what they're majoring. And that's why I mentioned Jake Rudock, who only played for us a year, but now is in the Michigan Medical School and somebody that we can all be proud of for what he did when he played for us. He did a great job. I think he was MVP of the bowl game that he played in. He came in and filled a need for us, and then went on and played, I think, with the Lions and Miami Dolphins on and off the development team, but now is in the Michigan Medical School doing a great job. And that's the product. That's what we want. We want guys to go out in their chosen profession and do well. So let's honor these guys this weekend. George Jewett, let's remember him. Let's remember that man and who he was and what it meant, and then how athletics can affect and be part of social change and make the world a better place. And then let's remember that we want to get to a bowl game, and let's try to win. And purpose and intensity, and we'll get there.
Absolutely, Coach. That's good for me. Right. Let's wrap it up. Go Blue. Let's go beat Northwestern.
Go Blue. Go get them. Yeah. Let's beat Northwestern. 2-game season.
2-game season,
get that bowl
Coach.
Game. Let's beat Northwestern. Let's remember George Jewett. Let's remember our seniors that are playing their last game. One of the great group of kids to ever come here. One of the most successful groups. And then the next game, I don't have to tell anybody what that means, but let's get there first. And then we'll talk next week about that game and how we can win, because I believe we can win. But let's beat Northwestern first.
All right, beat Northwestern, 2-game season, Coach. Talk to you next week.